All right, welcome to the School Turnaround Podcast. My name is Dr. Chance Lewis. I'm so excited for today's episode. For our listening audience that is joining us from around the country, around the world, we want to thank you for joining in with us today. For those of you who are new to the School Turnaround Podcast, our whole goal for the School Turnaround Podcast is to highlight real solutions that are going on in the field of urban education and education as a whole, to really find out what solutions are being done in schools across the country to allow them to reach their full potential as well. So today, I'm so excited for our guest. We have Dr. Henry Pettiegrew. He is the superintendent in East Cleveland School District, and we're just so excited to have him. So, Dr. Pettiegrew, welcome to the School Turnaround Podcast. And if you can, just introduce yourself to the audience briefly, and just kind of just shed a little light of how you got to your role and what led you to lead a school district like East Cleveland as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chance. Thank you, brother, man. I appreciate being on here. Appreciate being able to just shine some light on East Cleveland and let your listeners know what we've been doing over the last few years, which has been truly remarkable from our lens. But I'll take you back a little bit, give you a little bit of my story.
Okay, please do.
Listen, my path to education, it started with my parents. Both were educators. My father was a career principal, retired from that position. He was called a firefighter in Cleveland schools, where, you go in, you turn that school around, and then once you get comfortable, they send you to the next fire to put that one out, right? So,
exactly.
And my mother, she was a teacher at John F. Kennedy High School. So education, I saw it early on, how it not only just impacts students, but it impacts entire communities. Right. Yeah. So I began my teaching journey in a town called Bedford City Schools. I was a sixth grade teacher. I did that for about a year, and Cleveland Municipal, they were looking for assistant principals. I applied. They accepted me. 23 years old. Throw me in a 2,000 student building. Let's go and let's try to figure this out. And that's when I really started to see how systems work and how things really are. They're made or broken based not only by the people, but by how the system is constructed and the execution. But from there, I went to a place called Maple Heights, and where I was the assistant principal. Within 18 months of me being there, the superintendent said, "I got a better fit for you. You seem that you need to do something else." So from assistant principal of a middle school, I turned into the curriculum director. From curriculum director, I became the assistant superintendent. And at that time, we were going through preventative measures to avoid state takeover. This
Okay.
district was struggling. We were a Rust Belt community, trying to figure out how to get those academics going, and we were on the district's list to be taken over. I implemented a plan from the curriculum office, and we were able to stave off takeover. We were able to prevent state takeover that happened in that district, and actually that district became effective from our work that we did there. But that was a defining moment, man. It showed me
Mm-hmm.
that you can increase the performance. You can get rid of the idea of being taken over by the state. And that thing, it was concreted in my heart on there are ways when our black and brown students are struggling, there are ways that you can put a system in place to get them out of that situation. It shaped how I think about turnaround. It's
Right.
not about finding the next program. It's about building a system that works, man.
Mm-hmm.
So that was brought me to East Cleveland. East Cleveland is a neighboring community from where I was sitting. I watched them as we were all trying to avoid state takeover. Their
Right.
district fell into state takeover. Our boards were sister boards where they were kind of working through these things that were going on together. I saw it. I said, is this a place I need to go? And honestly, the Lord said, yes, this is where you need to go. And from
Right.
there, I went to East Cleveland City Schools as the state appointed superintendent and CEO in a district that had gone for over a decade of just poor test results and just a lot of unstable management. So here I am coming in, and that's when the real work began.
Good, good. Well, thank you for sharing the journey, because I think that that's important for our listeners to see, because we have a lot of people that tune in that have aspirations to be in a position similar to yourself as well. So understanding the journey is very important. And I wanted to see if you could, based on what you share with us thus far, this clarify one item for our
Yes.
listening audience, because as I work with people around the country on this particular topic, talk to us a little bit about what school takeover means in Ohio, right? And because everybody has their own definition. So what prompts a school takeover in Ohio?
You know what? That's an excellent question. So it's three F-rated report cards. So
Okay.
we're looking at the performance, the accountability index of the state, and if your district falls into this F range or this lowest range 3 years in a row, it
Hmm.
triggers House Bill 70 is what it was called. It was a legislative initiative to take over school districts, and we were one of three in the district that were taken over according to that legislative measure. It meant that the board no longer has authority.
Right.
And the state is going to bring in someone, and I was the person in East Cleveland to have full authority over the district. That means I was the board, I was the superintendent, I approved all contracts. I didn't have to go through the board, even though I did, which is something we could talk about later. I
Yeah.
broke kind of the way it should have. They wanted me to do it, and you have all this power, all this authority, and your job is to get the test scores up.
Right.
Wave your magic wand, do whatever you have to
Do
do,
whatever you
but
need to do.
get the test results. And honestly, the format is also fire everybody, disrupt the entire community, make things, change the environment. And those are things we didn't do. But in Ohio, that was the climate. We are the only district in the state of Ohio that went into state takeover and actually came out based on academics and meeting the requirements of the plan.
Oh, wow, wow. So based on that, then, with you being put in that situation and kind of the mandate that you were given by, any means necessary, raise the test scores, talk talk a little bit about how that governance context, shape your approach to leading these efforts, right? Because you share, like, your philosophy and looking at that, but a lot of people in our listening audience, they want to know, like, what's the first steps that you have to think about, like what were your kind of top two or three priorities when you went into that, knowing the
Yeah.
situation?
Absolutely. And I'm in a state takeover situation. Before I got there was doom and gloom. There was, he's going
Hmm.
to do this, he's going to do that. Like, we
Right.
need to talk about the emotional component of this for a while and what it does on people in their lives, and a lot of, worry that what was going to happen when we came in.
Hmm.
What I did was I did not deny the board. I continued to work with the board. They never missed a meeting. I was
Hmm.
always sitting there, even though they didn't have power. I didn't treat them that way. I took
Right.
all of their recommendations, all all of their votes, and then I would then later sign them into to make them official. But I wanted to make sure they understood. But the priorities, when you first come into a state takeover situation, the number one thing is student engagement. You got to make sure
Okay.
that the students are doing meaningful work. They're not
Mm-hmm.
just completing tasks. Many times the students are struggling because of what is going on in the classroom. We came in and we said the teachers are the leaders, and we're going to make sure teachers are at the front of our decision making and what we're trying to come up with. And the first thing we need to do is let's look at what students are being asked to complete. Is it just
Mm-hmm.
completing tasks? Is it just being compliant? Or are we really asking them to engage, to create, to solve problems, and really do those higher order thinking skills that we all know are necessary for them to continue moving? The second
Mm-hmm.
thing, we had to be visible with the data. It couldn't
Okay.
just live in the binder. It couldn't live in a
Right.
data room. We had to make sure that not only the teachers were using it, the students were using it, whether you're using, there's all kind of data that you can put data in portals, and you can share
Right.
apps, and you can share it out with the community. We did those things because what we created was what was called a scorecard. It
Mm-hmm.
was 20 different measures that we built. And it wasn't all testing. It was completing assignments. It was restorative justice. It was
Right.
other things that were controlled by the teachers that we could manipulate this data and really show that our students were doing better than what we've been doing historically. And then finally, the third was really ownership. When you talk about those first priorities, there's a lot of shared responsibility in distressed districts. People are working hard. People are
Mm-hmm.
always grabbing the rope and trying to help out. We talk about that
Right.
all the time. But in my district, we ask, but who's the pilot? Someone has to be the
Mm-hmm.
person. When you're on a plane, there
Right.
could be a co-pilot, there could be a staff, but there's one person making the decisions, and we're all following that person on this initiative. So we got really clear with, yes, we understand everybody is helping and there's shared responsibility on our babies. But now we look at it, well, who's ultimately responsible? When that person makes decisions, we're going to follow the decisions that person that we've put in charge of that particular initiative or that problem. Once those three things became clear, the engagement, the visibility, and the ownership, you can
Mm-hmm.
start to see our system come into an alignment.
Okay. And then, yeah, I mean, you said a lot in that, and in looking at that, I think when I consider all the efforts that go on around the country, right? I think the part that I'm so excited to have you on today because you had these priorities, but then you turn the priorities into gains, right?
Yes.
And so help us understand then when you put these systems in place, right? And you had these indicators, how were you able to match the priorities with actual gains for who you had to report to at the state level? What was that process like, that interconnectedness between how you went in and then what you needed to achieve as well?
Absolutely. I appreciate that question. The
Mm-hmm.
biggest driver was alignment. When you go
Okay.
into a distress situation, we've tried everything. I walked into a district where in every crevice, every area, because we can get the Title Ones, the federal monies, you go
Right.
buy all this stuff. You go put
Right.
every new initiative, every book, every
Mm-hmm.
consultant. You go buy everything trying to solve the problem, right? We're going to throw
Yeah.
the kitchen sink at it.
Right.
But that's not the key driver to gains. It's to slow down and say, does this make sense? Is it aligned to where we're trying to go? We did
Mm-hmm.
the opposite of taking on all these new initiatives. I cut more initiatives than anything else. Let's get
Mm-hmm.
really clear on just a few things. And if we can do those really well, because when the engagement improves in the classroom, and let me give you those small things that we cut all the way down. I
Okay.
cut all the consultants. I cut all the coaches. I cut a lot of those things. It was just bloat. It was just things
Mm-hmm.
that were just in a budget line. And we got clear on 4 priorities in the classroom. Explicit instruction. This has to
Okay.
happen every day, in every classroom.
Okay.
Explicit instruction, grade level tasks with supports. You can't give students tasks that are below grade level because that happens in distressed districts. You have to
Mm-hmm.
meet them where the standard asks for them to be, but then build those scaffolding to go up. You got to
Right.
check for understanding with the instructional response. It's not enough just to check thumbs up, thumbs down. It's not
Yeah.
enough just to have an exit ticket, but how are you responding to this data in real time? And then the
Mm-hmm.
fourth one that we got really clear on was writing to express student thinking. I
Okay.
found that in our turnaround around districts, our students aren't writing enough, not typing
Right.
on a Chromebook,
Yeah.
literally taking out the pen and the pencil and writing. And
Mm-hmm.
these are the things that we implemented, and we slowed down on all these other fancy things that other people are trying. And that led to our grains. That led to a 12-point performance index growth. It led to us being, for 2 years running, the second highest performance index growth district in our state. We jumped 62 places in
Mm-hmm.
our rankings. Did I mention that when I
That's
took over the
huge.
district, we were dead last? We were
Mm-hmm.
dead last for years. When you
Mm-hmm.
look at those rankings of 609 districts, we were at the bottom. We jumped 62 spots. And right now we're a Momentum Award winner, both my high school and my middle school. But these are all the things that happen from alignment. Once we
Mm-hmm.
aligned everything, the staff got engaged, the students got engaged, performance through that data became visible, ownership got clear. Then you
Mm-hmm.
started to see the changes in instruction with the look fors and the walkthroughs. You started to see the leadership behavior change. And then ultimately you started to see students talking about their own learning. And that's where the gains ultimately came from.
Wow. Wow. And so when you look at that, a lot of times with these school districts struggling with gains, a lot of times in these distress situations, as you say, there's an issue with trust, right? There's, this is the next thing, the next new thing that's coming in. Okay, how long will he be here? All the things they say in schools, right? But what was your strategy in building trust with the staff and the families and the broader community to actually implement this and get the support?
Yeah. And ultimately, the short answer is consistency over time builds trust. When I
Mm-hmm.
walked in 2019, I had 4 lawsuits that were pending to remove me as the state takeover superintendent.
Mm.
There's video on our YouTube showing the signs of the protests as I'm driving in, and it says Jim Crow, Ohio.
Mm.
I
Wow.
represent Jim Crow for a 99% African American community. So let me tell you how the distrust was when we came through the
Wow.
door. But the trust didn't come from a speech. It didn't come from a message. It came from that consistency over time. I
Mm-hmm.
walked in understanding my community is watching, and
Mm-hmm.
I needed to make sure the expectations I'm asking, is it stable? Are the things that we can do? Did we do the follow through? There were many conversations about, last chance agreements, and there were staff here that's been here so long. And when she was a teacher, we struggled all of that we
All
hear,
the
right?
things, right? Right.
And then do the decisions that we're making actually hit to the students? Does it match what we say matters? But over
Mm-hmm.
time, as this alignment happens and things line up, credibility is building. Then once credibility builds and they see that you're serious and these things are actually working, then you get the trust. It follows. One of the things
Wow.
we made sure we did was quarterly. We went to the community. We even gave away things to make sure folks were there. We made sure people was fed, but we talked
Mm-hmm.
about the data. The
Mm-hmm.
principals got up there in a line and they answered questions, Q&A style, from community members about what's going on buildings. That's how you build trust. You lay it out there. You be completely transparent. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that in many of our districts, we're not telling the real story. When I got
Mm-hmm.
here, there was a lot of game playing, a lot of sugarcoating what was really going on. But if you want to build trust, you have to be honest.
Right. You got to be honest, and I like how you said that, and I did not know like what you faced going in, but like we say, everybody has a story in
Yeah.
these efforts as well, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. So one of the things you highlighted is like one of your middle schools as an exemplar example. So to help our audience, kind of walk us through like what creating an environment where students feel inspired actually like looks like in practice. So like if somebody were to walk into that middle school on a daily basis, what would that look like? What would they see that moved it to an exemplar example?
All right. So I love that question too, man. These are just great questions.
Yeah.
I love the turnaround work.
Mm-hmm.
What we did at our middle school, and we actually did pre-K through 12, is we threw away all the old furniture. There was
Mm-hmm.
ESSER funds, there were care monies that was going out. We used them strategically, and we built new environments, fresh paint, fresh
Wow.
everything, so that the
Mm-hmm.
students saw really a premium level at the classroom and even in their collective spaces, the libraries, the cafeterias, the gyms, everything got a fresh touch. much, because we felt that if East Cleveland is the first suburb of Cleveland historically, then we should feel like a suburb. I know we're getting pushed into the urban, but our students are suburban students, and that things should feel like these suburban schools. So if you look at many of my common areas, it will resemble some of the residence halls in many of the institutions. Actually, I came down to North Carolina and looked
Okay.
around at some of the halls down there. And if you look at my middle school and high school libraries, they look a lot like the pictures that I took from that space, because I
Okay.
understood creating these environments are going to help students think, create, solve problems, not just complete work, but really
Yeah.
think differently. So you can feel it when you walk into our classrooms. The energy now is different. Our teachers are working hard. I mean, I put in East Cleveland, there's no banks, there's no grocery stores, there's no Starbucks, there's no coffee shops, those kind of things. So we put a coffee shop in our high school, so that
Okay.
our students can go to class with a cup of coffee.
Right.
We have water. It's called Shaw water. It's an alkaline water that we promote. Like, we just created this environment. I have 5 different mascots, not just one. So really just created this experience for the students to recognize and to feel seen, feel heard. Not to mention the 80 hours of listening tours that I did at every building. I went and talked to the babies. I
Right.
talked to the adults. That's great, but I want to talk to the students. And they told me how they felt in class. They told me what we needed to fix. And that's what we did. We went out and we changed the student experience based on them. My advice to anyone that's in this work is listen to the students, chase the babies. You
Right.
can't go wrong. They will tell you what they need. One quick story is, they said, your generation, your generation likes to tell us what to do. But
Right.
we're waiting for you to take us by the hand and actually show us the steps that it takes to get it done. That's not
Wow.
something my generation was asking for, but it's something different. So we have to curve our ideas to that level. And then that student experience changed the energy, and it changed the results ultimately in our schools.
Wow, wow. And so I could see when you change the aesthetics of a place and change that environment and what it looks like, and it feels like a place where I'm supposed to be, a place where I'm valued.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how that can really change the academic trajectory of the students as
Yeah.
well. So now, one other thing, if we could slightly shift the conversation to a part that I know you understand from your seat, but maybe our wider audience doesn't necessarily understand. School turnaround is also big business, as well, right? It's a business side of it as well. So my question for you is, how important is it for turnaround efforts to directly connect to workforce and economic mobility? You talk about, you got alkaline water, you got, a number of things that are going on. So talk to us about the connection between that side as well.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. The students are asking us, take me by the hand and actually show it to me. This connection is critical. If they don't see where the learning leads, you can't
Right.
sustain the motivation. So I have to bring in folks. I have to bring things to their awareness, take them out on trips and that kind of thing. And when we start talking about career tech, because that's really this workforce,
Right.
and trying to make sure students have pathways, I have 13 pathways in my high school. We're going to make sure that if you want to do it, as my principal says, our high school is the place where dreams come true.
Right.
I had a student in 8th grade, and she was in 8th grade, leaving, going to 9th grade. She wanted to be a veterinarian. I didn't
Okay.
have that program.
Okay.
We created a pathway for her. We worked with the local universities to make sure that what she wanted to do, she could actually do it in our district. These are the things turnaround districts have to stop thinking like the last resort. And we're the
Right.
place where the buck stops in terms of nowhere else for students to go, and start treating and behaving like a premium destination location. And with
Right.
our workforce, I got a film studio over in August. We put a film studio on the 5th floor of my high school. I got Ray Jr., who's a well-known author and movie producer and writer and
Okay.
hip hop person. He's there and showing the students, and we taking students in cater vans to their movie premieres at the local colleges, just to
Right.
show them where this is going to go. On April 25th, I have a show it's your opportunity day at our high school, where we're going to show all of our partnerships. We're going to show all of the folks, all of the businesses. We're hiring people that day. We're going to show you what students are learning that day. The
Sure.
students are going to do demonstrations demonstrations, our culinary department. I got a restaurant, I got career tech, I got esports, I got drones, I got
Mm-hmm.
you name it. I got construction, I got manufacturing,
Right.
cosmetology, I got all of it. Exercise science. I can go on and on. We
Mm-hmm.
built that during this turnaround moment because what we understood is that when you show the students where the learning leads, you can get that motivation and you can get them across the finish line. And now I have students leaving our high school, going on to great careers, and they're part of
Mm-hmm.
our very strong alumni association. But that workforce connection, it has to be a part of this work.
Yeah, and so many people don't think about that, right? Like I love how you say you have the 13 pathways because I mean you know this, so that's not new information to you, but you know we have so many schools and school districts that just try to force students into one or two pathways, right?
Yes.
And that given that there's so many things that could be done now, that's why a lot of students get frustrated, want to leave, not show up at school, and all of those things. So I really appreciate, how you say you're providing all of those pathways as well.
And can I give you
So
let me give
yeah,
you a
yeah,
real answer. I'm
yeah.
sorry, I want to give because the reality of it, those of you that may be listening, is not every person that was in these pathways want to go the direction of turnaround and get
Right.
better. Some people are very compliant. And what we've created is an environment where, in terms of career tech, each teacher is now the marketer of their own program. And if you
Okay.
can't get enough students to come into your program, I'm an open enrolled district. We'll take students from anywhere. We've
Right.
now really leaned into the marketing and the recruitment, which creates that engagement. Students are not, oh, you're just assigned by your guidance counselor. Oh, no, you're handpicked by that teacher because the teacher sees something in you through the experiences that we gave. So I just wanted to give a little bit more coloring to that conversation.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, so
Yeah.
each teacher is responsible for the marketing of that program, and
Yeah.
then that becomes a driver of student enrollment in that particular pathway as well.
Absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. And then given that you had a liberty in those kind of what you create to facilitate the turnaround, is there any duplication between what you have in your pathways and what other options the students may have to attend school?
Yeah, honestly, we have our 13 pathways, but then there's some digital pathways we can connect you to. And then
Yeah.
there's 3 or 4 local universities that we can push you in those pathways as well. Really, I get inspired when a student says, I want to do something, but it's not really offered at our high school. We go to
Mhm.
work and trying to figure out, even if it's one student, how can we get them that exposure that can lead to ultimately a career?
Got it. Got it. Well, I appreciate that. So what I always like to do on each of my episodes of the School Turnaround podcast is really kind of drive out the solutions and what I call kind of rapid fire solutions, just for the audience to kind of think about as well. So I'm gonna name some stakeholders, 2 or 3 stakeholders, and just give us your thoughts about 1 or 2 quick actionable recommendations that you would give to them. So if a superintendent is watching, right, it's a
Yeah.
person that's sitting in a similar seat as you, what are 1 or 2 quick things that you think that they should be thinking about as they enter this school turnaround space?
Absolutely. Rapid fire. Get clear on your priorities,
Okay.
superintendent, and protect them at all costs.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, because many superintendents, I know so many around the country that don't do that, but that's a
Yeah.
whole other story for another time, right? But let's talk about school principals. What would you tell them for particular recommendations and strategies?
Own the instruction.
Okay,
It's the
on
core
this.
to your role.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers are saying, is my principal an instructional leader?
Mm-hmm.
My dissertation was the premise of when a teacher struggles or they have a question with their instruction, is the administrator the first person they go to? And if it's not, you may not be the instructional leader of your building, but that's for
Mm-hmm.
another time.
Yeah, that's definitely for another time. we know some of it or not, but we'll cover that in a future episode, right?
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Okay. All right. What about school boards?
I would say the school boards focus on outcomes, not activity. There's a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot that goes on in managing schools and managing turnaround. Don't focus on those things. You got people that you should trust to do those things. Focus on whether or not they're hitting the outcomes or hitting the targets you set, and you'll be successful.
Excellent, excellent. And so before we close, just tell us from your wealth of experience and so many people trying so many things in this space of school turnaround. What's one thing people get completely wrong when they think about school turnaround?
And you just said it. You're trying too hard. You're doing too much. You're adding
Right.
too much in it. Some recipes are better with a reduction sauce. You gotta pull some things away and really just, what are your priorities? Get to the core of what you really need to be focused on and then lean heavily into that. But many times I see, even with consultants and firms that want to come in talking about takeover, they come in with a very bloated view of all of these things and all of these processes. But as a person that was raised by educators, it don't take all that. It
Right.
really takes the relationship with the students and trying to figure out how that student learns and then how you can bring that information and that learning to a way that student can capture it. But there's a lot out there, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business. And just be careful of all of that out there, and just get really clear on your priorities.
Great, great. And my last question for you is, when you kind of look at school turnaround nationally, look at it in Ohio, in particular, what you're doing in East Cleveland, what gives you hope for a brighter future when you look at the full capabilities of what schools can do? And when you think about it from your side, what makes you excited or hopeful about what the future can hold in this area?
The future gives me so much hope because I've seen it work. Whether it's in East Cleveland, whether it was in Maple Heights previous to East Cleveland, I seen not only can the turnaround work, it actually can work. It can be effective. It's also replicatable. When the systems are aligned, when the expectations are clear and they're consistently reinforced, you'll see more outcomes. We're seeing it happen in real time. This year, it is just so cool, if I could say it that way, for us to have had such a victory, and we've seen record numbers of academic gains to now live in that moment. I have so many people that were at the end of the career waiting for these moments, and they're
Right.
starting to retire because they're saying, my job is now done. I've able to see the victory. And it's so encouraging. So that gives me hope that we found something that works. And not only did it work in East Cleveland, it can work in any other school that may be struggling.
Wow, wow. Well, Dr. Pettiegrew, you have dropped some gems on us today. I hope everybody takes the time to listen to the podcast while they're working out, driving in their car, and really go back and re-listen to it, because I think some of the things that you share with us are easily implementable, right,
Yes.
in schools across the country. But more importantly, it allows us to reach the full potential, as well. So just while we have you on here, if our audience wanted to reach out to you or get in contact with you for more information, how could they reach you? What's the best way for them to reach you?
Absolutely. Henry Pettiegrew, you see it on there, Pettiegrew. You can Google me. I'm on all social media, all platforms. I'm not hard to find. I like to say it that way. And while you're on Google, look at the news and look at all the great things that we've done in East Cleveland. Behind me, there's a Changemaker Browns jersey. There's also a Diff Maker Cleveland Cavs jersey. If I move my head, that's the jersey I gave all my children when we got out of academic distress. There's a lot going on, but if you look me up and if you reach out to me on any of those platforms, I will respond. And if you need some help or some thought partner, please reach out. I don't hesitate in this area. This is one of my passions.
Well, great, great. Well, Dr. Pettiegrew, thank you so much for joining our episode. We really appreciate you as well. So we just really hope everybody would really just get into this episode, dive in, and really implement what Dr. Pettiegrew shared with us today, because the outcomes that he is generating in East Cleveland is definitely a model for all school districts to see around the country as well. So Dr. Pettiegrew, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Dr. Lewis, thank you for this opportunity just to talk to your audience. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for listening.